What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa. You know, we got my girl Justine here as well. And if you're new here, this is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. We invite guests on to share their own story of how music has made a positive impact in their lives, as well as their own mental health journey. Before we get into our wonderful guest, which I'm so excited about, I know you clicked on it, you're excited about it too. Let's take care of the business right now. If you enjoy the show, even just a little bit, and you want to help support us, all you have to do is one, follow us, subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and leave a positive rating and review. It would really mean a lot to us. It helps support our show. This little engine that we pump out every week, and we appreciate every single person that has already done so. Today in the show, I was joined by three of the members of the band Roderik: Jake, Dave, and Riley. Steve, will have to get you next time because I'm aware now we're all so close. So we need to make it happen. Maybe next time, next season, I'll get us all together and video it, and it would be really, really cool. But Roderik was a band I came across on TikTok, and I instantly gravitated toward their music. It was a very Lisa-friendly music, and I was like, this is so great. I also loved when I saw them talk about mental health and what they're all about. And I also want to give a shout out to the manager, Alice, for making this happen and getting this set up for us so we were able to have this conversation. Managers are wonderful and they work really hard. And I want to shout out to Alice as well for this. We dive into their early days of falling in love with music, their own mental health journeys. We talk about a struggle that I think a lot of young bands face, that I think a lot of us listening to them and wanting to support them have no idea that they face, and their own mental health struggles in that. So it was really, really great. We touch on a little bit, not too much. So there is no spoiler because it's out now, but their brand new song, Where'd You Go, is out, featuring Joshua Roberts of Magnolia Park. And I'm so happy for these guys and able to get this feature and get them out there. They just hit 3,000 streams on it. So go listen to it. Let's bump it up to maybe 5,000. Let's do that. They've got a great show at 89 North in Long Island. So June 1st, if you're in the Long Island area, semi-close, go see the show, follow the House Fest. Looks like a lot of fun. I would love to attend it as well. I'll post all the links below to go check out Roderik because they're just simply such a cool band. And I also want to thank them for their patience. I had a technical difficulty in Zoom. I am always in here 20 minutes early, checking audio, getting ready. For whatever reason this day, I couldn't get them in. And I was really upset that I was 10 minutes late, and they were so kind and wonderful. So shout out to Jake, Riley, and Dave for that. I cannot thank you enough. But here is our conversation with Jake, Riley, and Dave of Roderik. I'm so glad I came across you guys on TikTok because what were music and mental health. So it was perfect when I saw Save Me, and this is perfect, and a New Jersey band, but I know you're also based in Long Island. But I mean, I'm in Central Jersey, so I have to know where in New Jersey are you guys?
Okay, so first off, thank you for saying
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we are very primarily based around our music is very much so infused with the idea of mental health. It's just
Mhm.
something that we don't I don't personally as a lyricist don't like to write about things that I don't feel connected to, and it just kind of happened, right? But yeah, I mean, and also well done knowing that we're both from Long Island and New Jersey. That was, you clearly did your research. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'm in Keensburg, so it's kind of
No way.
central-ish. I don't know. I've been told that it's not central, and then I've also been told central doesn't exist. So but I consider it to be central. It's as central for me as I would ever imagine. So
That's wild because when I first moved here, gosh, 2016. So it's been a bit. I lived in Keensburg because I met my fiance off Instagram because we both love the band Brand New and our brand new tattoos. I'm originally from Illinois. So I lived right off 3 Leroy. I lived right off there. And now I'm so close to you guys. I'm actually on Middle Road.
oh
So
wow.
Hazlitt. So that's crazy
Yeah.
to think.
Is
I
that
had
close?
no idea
I have no
we
idea.
could have been doing this in person. I had no idea.
Oh my God, we'll have to do it
That's
again in
super fun.
person.
We'll have to do something. Yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
schedule it.
Yeah, that's
I'm
so
actually from
cool.
Long Island.
Oh, so I mean, and I loved Long Island and hearing that about you
Uh-huh.
guys because originally back in the day, we had bands like Taking Back Sunday and
Oh, for
Glassjaw
sure.
and all those. I wanted to live in Long Island. So I was like, I don't
That's
know
where me
anything
and
about
Jake
it.
are from.
So that's
It's
so
it's so
cool.
funny because me and Jake both went to the same high school, but never
Yeah.
knew each other until afterwards. And then I
Yeah, I got
found him on
4 years
social
on him.
media.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
I
so
found it on
wild.
social media, but we were from originally Long Island. I'm still on Long Island, but we do a lot of work in New Jersey, and that's why we're so close to, Jake's in
Yeah.
Keensburg, and we're so close to the New Jersey music scene now because we do a lot of stuff in New Jersey.
And I mean, like, Riley, where are you at?
So I live in Colts Neck, which is also
Okay.
like Central Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like 20-30 minutes from the studio. But yeah.
Oh wow. So that's so cool. That's so cool to have a Jersey.
Mhm.
They were my first, I think, pretty sure, first Jersey band. New Jersey trying to get this band Polyjuice band on. So
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because they're big on mental health too. So that's just so crazy, that small world. So for you guys, what is so special about Long Island music scene and even New Jersey, where now, like what is so special if someone's never been there, never been a part of that music scene for you guys? What's been so special?
I would say for me, each scene is different, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like you can absolutely like look in depth at any scene. Well, I'm not gonna say the generalize you. I feel like I've seen, how do I say that? I've been to many different scenes
Hmm.
and like, not lived there, but we've done pretty, I wouldn't say extensive touring, but a decent amount of touring. And like every scene is so different than the last. And like Long Island is no different and New Jersey is no different. I think the thing about Long Island, and no shade to New Jersey, is, and honestly, it can be, it's rewarding, but also it can be kind of like, both things are like, about that I'm about to say, have their rewards and they have their downfalls, pitfalls as like a scene. The Long Island scene is it's so tight knit, right? Like every
Mm-hmm.
band pretty much knows each other. You mentioned Polyjuice, like
Hmm.
I don't think we've played with them, but I do know them. I do know of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Dave might know one of their members. I probably know one of their members.
Hmm.
Like, so it's very tight knit in that way. I mean, it's literally an island. But the pitfall behind that is like it's hard to get out, right? Because it is so tight knit that like, and it's really expensive to leave the island. Where Jersey has the opposite, right? It's so big, it's a full state. There no part of it's really sectioned off really like that way. And maybe like there are pockets where there are things like that, but I feel like we know less bands. I feel like the bands that we do know, like probably don't know the other bands we know. Like it's not like on Long Island, like you know this band and they know this band and you also know that band. Where in Jersey, I feel like it's like, okay, you know this band and you know that band and you know this band, but they don't play together, or they don't really know each other. But the positive side of that is I feel like it's a lot easier to break out of Jersey and kind of get to more places. So I feel like, but like both of them have their own special thing, and like specifically for the Jersey scene is, I feel like, again, great things, but also could have its downfall is like, bands aren't really as inclined to play like venues as they are house shows, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
awesome. But I also think, it might be like a little bit of a a downfall for the scene, that it's not as like, but then again, that's the closeness of like house shows. Like you can't get closer to fans than a house show, so like that's,
Mm-hmm.
I think, the beauty of the Jersey scene.
Yeah, like I'm
The
still
house shows.
diving into it. Like I love that. I see a lot of house shows. Like I think we had the band Goalkeeper on, and I know they're like South Jersey, Philly, but they were saying like they've done a lot of house shows in the past, which even for them, and I was like, that's so cool to know that's
Mm-hmm.
still going on, because that's what I grew up in. Although like Illinois, Chicago area, when I came out here, I was like, I don't even know like the scene, like how is it? But everybody's just, I feel, at least on my end, I don't play music, but they're just nice. Like, and I go into the venues and everything, and it's nice to see that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love Goalkeeper. First of
Yeah,
Oh,
we
all,
love
love
Goalkeeper, by the way.
Goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Big
oh,
fan.
oh, and I
To
was a big
me,
fan. Yeah, go ahead.
100%. To me, the music scene on Long Island has always been about the venues, and the venues on Long Island have been both famous and infamous. Some venues that have like closed down have been like the Crazy Donkey, Revolution Barn Music Hall, Even Flow. Some venues that were really really important in the beginning in the Long Island music scene, at least when I was coming up back in the day. But there are still amazing venues on Long Island to go and see shows, like the Paramount, or like Amityville Music Hall, or like
And more,
the
right?
smaller places too, Shakers, 89 North.
Mr.
The 89
Beery's.
North is also a larger
Yeah.
place. Like 89 North to me has kind of taken the place where Revolution Bar and Music Hall has kind of left. That's kind of, to me, where 89 North has taken over. On Long Island, it's always been about these venues that everyone has gone to and everyone keeps going to, like over generational.
I love Goalkeeper because they were the first band ever to say yes to
Oh
me. So
yeah.
they're like golden to
Oh my
me
God.
because when everyone was saying no, the Cody was like yes. So they're the best in my eyes. And even
Big
talking
fan of
about
Goalkeeper.
89 North, you guys are going to play there on June 1st for
Yeah.
Follow the House
Mhm.
Fest. What are you guys most excited about that?
Okay, hold on. Wait. First off, I have to talk about goalkeeper because
Yeah.
goalkeeper is like honestly, Mark is like a it's been like hard since COVID to kind of keep in touch with them, but I
Mhm.
mean all of them, Mark, Cody, like,
Yeah.
I so during COVID, funny, like the year that we started up, 2020, we were really close with goalkeeper. Like, we spent a lot of time, or I spent a lot of time with Mark. We would do these little like drinking games, like social distancing, like drinking games,
Yeah.
where like, and by social distancing I mean like virtual, right?
Oh my
And,
God.
like, yeah, and we would do like this thing where we would have like we set up a whole Excel sheet and then we would play like like the like beer pong game on your phone that
Yeah.
you could. So like we would build like this entire tournament with like 20 of us and Mark would join us and it was just a lot of fun because like that's like my first experience of like
Super
just
cute.
kind of like that's like my memory of COVID, right? Is just hanging out with a bunch of people, Mark's included in that, and just playing like this tournament of like beer pong where I don't drink anymore, but like it was just a lot of fun. Like, we would just like hang out and like I have really fond memories of like with Mark and honestly, like since then, like we haven't really been as close, like life kind of gets in the way, but I do love the goalkeeper dudes. Like they're all great guys. They're all really down to earth. And I love that they were your first like official
Mhm.
interview. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I
they
love the
and
music.
literally when I was every no and I remember when Cody was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." I was like, "Okay, well, I don't have anything up yet. I don't have anything, but let's do this." And so yeah, no, it makes me know I don't know them personally, but the fact that they're good guys, that's great.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Super
But
cool
I apologize. What was your question?
No, that's okay. So you guys are gonna play 89 North on June
Yes.
1st,
Yeah.
Follow the House Fest. What are you guys excited about with that?
So honestly, it's just like a compilation of all of our friends, right? Like we know every band, like your first question, right? About the
Yeah.
Long Island scene. Like I know personally at least one member from each band that's playing. We were a large part of putting the show together. So as far as like playing a show, like it's fun to meet new people, but then it's a different level when you're playing with everybody you know.
When you're playing with your friends, yeah.
Yeah, and we're sharing the stage with not only like bands that we've already played 89 North with, but then like a bunch of bands that we just haven't had the opportunity to play with them yet. And I feel like that's what's so special about this 89 North show is like we have all these bands that are like up and coming in the Long Island scene and like representing, and these are bands that we're all somewhat friends with or we've met before or we've wanted to play shows with before and now it's finally happening and I feel like that's really what makes this show special for us.
I already was like, oh, what's on my calendar? Maybe I can make it out to this one. Like I'm not that far from there because that's so cool. And I saw it was a lot of Long Island bands, and I thought that was really cool to have that and that there is a thriving scene because I forget
Oh, for sure.
who I had on and they weren't sure. They're like, maybe I'm older and I'm just so outdated. It was my friend Dan, and he was like, I don't think there's a scene out there. But then I saw that you guys had the fest. So I'm like, maybe there is. Maybe I need to like tag him and be like, go out there. There's clearly something going on over there.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
it's our home. So we get a lot of like, so not a lot of slack, like Blackboard, but like, sometimes people are like, oh, like I thought you're from Long Island but you say you're from Jersey or whatever. So the way we define it now is like, we started it, on Long Island and we are initially formed, right, on Long Island. And now we're based in Jersey. So like, Long Island will always be a part of our name. It'll always be a part of our heritage, and we're never going to shed that. So, yeah, I mean, it feels like coming home. That's what we are so excited about with the show is like it's coming home.
Like I was talking about before, those venues are so important to us. And like 89 North, I know I played like long time ago, when I was younger, I used to go to that venue and Amityville Music Hall and Revolution Bar Music Hall. All those venues on Long Island are super important to everyone in the scene. They're like, keystones to our lives.
So I guess everybody listening, you just have to go to Long Island now. We all have to make a trip, get out there.
Yeah.
There's some great venues and great music on Long Island still.
We'll grab a
100%.
bus. We'll pick up
It's a
every single
thriving-
person and we'll go.
Yeah, come on, let's do it. Like,
That would be awesome, honestly.
yeah, they like a big bus.
Party bus.
There
Party
you
bus to
go.
Long Island.
Yeah, gotta
Right
make it
on the
happen.
Roderik bus.
There you go. Have your Roderick on the side. But even even talking about your music, obviously how I found you guys on TikTok, you have Save Me and Panic, and those songs really dive in to mental health issues. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering for you guys, how is it to have those songs out there and what has the response been? Because I mean, for me right away, I was like, this is my style, this is my music. I love it. And then once you dig deeper into it, it's like, okay, like it's real, and I think that's the music I seem to love is where there's realness to it, where you can feel something from it. It's not just, okay, here's a 30-second clip of a lyric, it's I want to go find more of it.
Honestly, you just made me a little emotional. So thank you.
Yeah.
That really like something about you, the way you said it just really made me feel like, you always wonder, like, I'm doing this, is anyone even paying attention, right? And
Mhm.
I put a lot of time and effort into the lyrics specifically. I mean all of it, but specifically the lyrics, and like for a very long time Save Me was a very emotional song to play live, and Panic, I mean, Panic is the definition of my life the last 4 years, right? I would say Save Me is the definition of my life from like 2016 to like 2021, 22, and then like Panic kind of took over that. Like it just like both songs are really encapsulate my feelings over the last like 10 years. And I mean, I wrote Save Me in a very, very emotional time in my life, obviously. um, but it has to do with, feeling like you're kind of out of control with, I don't mean like out of control, like all over the place. I mean, like you don't have a sense of a grasp on your life and your emotions and like how you're feeling about certain things in your life and how to kind of literally, I'd say I'm taking back control, because like we all want a sense of control of what we're feeling and how we're going about how we're processing things. And I mean, Save Me was written in such a volatile time in my life. Like it was written during a time where
The world was ending.
oh, it was written before that. I mean,
I mean,
so
even before.
like, Save Me was like basically just to like, I guess, dive into like the real reason behind Save Me. And I've never talked about this publicly before, but I had a situation where I was with someone for 7 years. Boom, that ended. All in the same time, all in the same 6 month span of that ended, my old band fell apart, and then COVID hit. And it was just like, it felt like my life it was just shambles. And like, I've really picked up the pieces a lot since then, but it still resonates when I think about it. And like, that's just kind of like what Save Me is about. And it feels like an emotional roller coaster of like, even thinking back now, I still get really emotional about that time in my life. It just felt so uneasy. It felt like there was no safety net, no ground. I had to
Oh
move
yeah.
in with my dad like at 27, like, like, I don't know. It was just, yeah. So it was very relevant at the time. And then Panic, just to like, not to ramble, but like Panic is about that time in my life, not dealing with it the right way. And then like becoming so overwhelmed with anxiety from not dealing with these things that I just every day was constant panic attacks. And it just felt like it was never ending until I finally just like started addressing what the problems are in therapy and like dealing with it. And obviously music, writing it helped. And that's what Panic is about. It's literally the moment just before a panic attack hits. And it just feels like, and then you get to that bridge and boom, you're in the panic attack. And it's that quick. And it's just like, that's really what Panic is about. So I'm really happy that you grabbed onto that.
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with anxiety what I knew my whole life, not for a while. It wasn't until years ago when my fiance got into a horrible work-related accident and he suffered in his mental health and he started having panic attacks. And then me trying to take care of him, and I kind of put all my mental health in the back burner. I'm like, I don't, I'm good. I got to take care of him. But that's when I started going through a lot more in mine. And just even I played it for him because I was like, this is for you and he right away was like, this really catches what a panic attack can be. And that feeling of it does just sink in. It just is it's so good. So if anyone's listening, like I'm going to have all the links for everything because I just think it really was so cool to see something like that talked about. Like not a lot of artists, they do and they don't, but I just think it was so perfect.
Thank you. I mean, as far as, panic goes, you got to deal with the stuff that you're going through, because then if you don't, it all welts up and then you get like me and you get these panic attacks and like, I've learned that I have to deal with them. Otherwise they manifest in other ways. And this sounds crazy, but like, I think a large part of my problems over the last X amount of years is me not dealing with my problems over the X,
Mhm.
27, 28 years of my life. I mean, it got so bad where I was physically being challenged, like it like manifested in a way that like was causing me to get these insane like cysts, right? Like on my face. And like I've never been one to have acne before. And it was so bad that it would like cover my whole face, like my whole, so I still have like a few scars from them. And like when I started addressing my problems, those started to go away or become far and few between. And now I have them more and more rare than I used to have them. And it just like it's crazy what stress, anxiety, and panic attacks, what it all can do to you. It's like I'm no doctor. I'm not,
Mhm.
diagnosing anyone, but like that is my story. That is what happened. That's how I felt. And I see a connection between the two.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that yes, mental health can be that invisible illness, but which sucks. I wish everybody treated it like a physical, but you do have physical things. Like me and my anxiety, there'll be times where I'm like, I have stomach issues. Like it's not like TMI, everybody, but it's life. And I think people don't understand that. So I would love to know for you guys in your own mental health, besides music, and you guys can each share yours. What tools do you guys use to get through anything mental health related?
I'll let someone else
Mm.
speak because I've been doing most of the talking. Let them go first.
I think it's important to reach out to people and to communicate with your support system because you have a support system for a reason in order to reach out for support in those kind of times when you need help with your social, with your not just social but your psyche, your mental health. I think it's important, to seek help, to like, to decide to seek help too. A lot of people don't decide, don't really see, mental health as an issue, or, decide to see it as not a big issue, but it is a big issue because it can help you become a better person. It's the best thing to reach out because oftentimes your support system will tell you to go and seek even more help to help you become the fully kind of realized person that you want to be. And I think that all starts with communication with your support system.
Yeah, that's so important. I think the hardest part is to reach out to that support system because usually when you are
Mhm.
struggling, you think that no one's going to help you or you're a burden or anything. At least that's how I felt for a long time. So I think that's so important what you just said.
100%.
And what about you, Riley?
Yeah, to sort of piggyback off what Dave said, it's sort of like I guess it depends on how bad of a headspace you're in. Like me personally, if I'm not feeling the best, but I know it's not, I mean, really any situation that goes on where I'm not in the best headspace, it's not the end of the world. But like that's one thing that people need to um remember is that like life isn't gonna go downhill, like you're fine. If anything, it's gonna build you back up. Like it depends on what type of headspace you're in. If you're not feeling the best, maybe do something that like me, I like to go to the gym or like I'll go on a run if I'm not feeling the best. And then after that, I'm like, okay, I'm good. But if I'm sort of more down to the dumps than usual, then yeah, I'll reach out to family or friends. Yeah, that's me personally, that's what I do.
Yeah, I think exercising is really underrated. I think some people want to always
Mm,
think
Mhm.
people are trying to tell you, oh, just go work out, you'll feel better. But for me, I mean, that's what I did today. I keep it in my routine for my mental
for
health. And I
sure.
think it's one of those things that have helped me so much when my anxiety struggle is. I mean, of course, getting to the gym sometimes is the hardest part. But once I'm
Mhm.
there, I'm like that hour or whatever, it's like, okay, now I feel better. And the days I don't get to do it or any physical movement or even just a walk or run outside, I feel like crap. So it's so important, and I'm glad you guys brought that up.
I think that people really sometimes underestimate how much of a change, things like that, going to the gym or eating a certain way
Yeah,
can
Or even just
change
getting out of
their
bed.
whole mindset. Or getting out of bed, yeah, getting out of bed at a certain time, can change their whole mindset on what's going on with their mental.
for sure. I mean, diet is huge. I tell people. I know, like, I don't want to ever seem like, oh, hey, you have to eat right, but it's so important especially for me and my anxiety, it's helped me so much. Like putting things,
Hmm.
whether like magnesium rich foods or something like that, has been a game changer in my anxiety. So I'm also glad you brought that up, Dave, because that's so important that again, people overlook or think that people are just trying to maybe sell them something, and maybe there are, but it's so important.
Well, I think that kind of stuff provides structure, right? And that
Hmm.
kind of structure allows us to get the other things in our life done without having as much anxiety, you know? Because I think a lot of people are always kind of searching for that kind of routine, right? Like in my opinion, routine is the stress killer. That you have a routine and you stick to it. And if you stick to that routine, at the end of the day, you feel like you had a productive day. And that's what we're always looking for every day, I think. As people, we're always looking for, did we have a productive day? Because that's a part of our happiness, I think. Of do we have a productive day? We feel productive, we feel accomplished. That makes us a little happy, right? That makes the endorphins, the dopamine go off.
Yeah, so many good things. I can't wait to clip them all. I'm like, yes, all right, guys. But one thing that I learned was really cool about your band was the influence of Edgar Allan Poe, which was really cool. And that's why I know Justine's so bummed because this is totally her alley and she's so into that. But in your writing and just imagery, like even just watching the video for American Dream, that imagery there, it was like, all right, this is a band that literally cares about their imagery. There's a reason probably for this. And even the look of that video specifically, if anyone has seen it that's listening to this, you'll know. If not, I'll link it. But for you guys, I know you probably have said it before in other podcasts or interviews. How important is that influence in your songwriting?
Mm.
So I think like, you go in like ebbs and flows as a band. The imagery aspect is something that I feel like is it kind of went through a phase where it was really hard to keep up. It almost felt like it like a hindrance on the progress of like what we were doing. So we kind of shied off of it a little bit. But I think like in more upcoming stuff, I think you're gonna start to see it kind of poke its head through a bit more again. But like, yeah, I mean, as far as like everything in that video has a reason, right? There's not one thing that I know of at least that was overlooked as far as like what the image is trying to tell someone. We still do that. We still think of that even with our social media posts. Like, we try to like connect colors to a certain song. Like if we're doing rice and we probably are going to try to do a red background. If we're doing like, Save Me, it's probably going to maybe have some tinge of blue, right? And like it's just like there is I don't know if I could ever get away from it 100%. And I think the reason being is I think like there's so much connection between what we're saying in the songs and what we're saying in the imagery that like they're supposed to work hand in hand, right? Because if you dive into like the lyrical aspect of the songs, there's never a moment where I'm like, this is what it is, this is what's happening. I'm telling the listener 1,000%. Like it's always kind of masked in metaphors or similes. And the
Mhm.
reason being is I feel like if you force feed the listener or the viewer something, it leaves little to the imagination. And I feel like, we're creating these things that have more life to them than we could ever like than I don't know how to explain this, but like the imagery is supposed to enhance the audio. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't do that, then we don't do one. right? That's why we don't have videos for certain songs, and that's kind of the reasoning. Like we have a song coming out very soon that is very nostalgic feel. So we created a video. I don't know when this is coming out, but we created a video that's very 90s themed. And the reason why is because it's supposed to represent, where most of us came from. And
The
we're
feeling of nostalgia, yeah.
right. And I just can't imagine a world where they don't work together, right? Like the audio should be enhanced by the visuals. And that's always been important. That's in the foundation of Roderick.
By the way, I was going to ask if we could talk about the new song, and then when this can come out whenever too. So if I need to like make sure this is out around that time or anything, we can do that. But I think that's really cool. And that's one thing now I almost want to go back and look at the posts. Like, is there the red for Rice? And is there this? Because I bet you it is. And I love bands like that use that and that aren't as, hey, this is what it is. This lyric here it is. Or even if someone wants you to dissect it, like you seem like a band that's going to be like, well, what do you get from it? Right. And not maybe disclose it, because I think that's what's so cool. And it's even, like I said, I want to like after this, like go and look and see all that cool imagery. That's for me as a music fan. That's always really cool.
We try our best. It's not a foolproof thing. Like there are moments where I'm sure Ryson's background isn't red.
Yeah.
But it comes down to like time and energy and how efficient it's going to be to do that. I mean, if you change the background color, you probably have to like change the lighting. So like, sometimes it's just easier to just not. We try our best with everything as far as the social media. Like we look at social media as like, in like the Star Wars universe, it's like, okay, here's like the A stuff and then the comics or like B stuff. And then like we kind of look at the social media stuff as like, or I do at least, as like the B stuff. Like these are the things that we have to do every day. Like it might not be as easy to ingrain things in there. But you've kind of inspired me to maybe start doing that a little bit more.
Oh, that's all. Yeah, Star Wars, that's my language. I'm all excited. Like that's I have my lightsaber somewhere in there. So like
that's awesome.
All in that. But but part of our podcast too is the importance of music. So I would love to know, we can just go around. We can start with you, Dave, if you want. What are those first memories of falling in love with music? Whether it's an artist or a show or a time,
falling in love with music.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm Jewish and I grew up very religious. And I grew up in temple. And I remember, and I went to shul every week. I put on my suit and I went to shul every week when I was young. And I remember I used to go to a shul, and if anyone is listening who is Jewish and they're, they know about Ashkenazi and Sephardi, I'm Ashkenazi, but I went to a Sephardic shul. And when I used to go to temple, the singing was something that always got me, and I'm sure that anyone of any religious background, when they go to temple or mosque or church, the singing is something that was ingrained in me in music. And it made me want to, really interested in music and really understand music when I was young, the singing and being involved in the singing, the communal singing, So as I grew up and I learned about artists and I learned about more music, I just got more and more involved in music in that way. And, it became a dream, like everyone becomes a dream of doing it, of really doing it, and that's where I am now, but it all started with, a foundation of listening to communal singing and communal, not just singing, but communal, social ideas of the chorus of singing with people,
Oh, that's really cool. I don't think anyone's ever said that. So that's really cool to have that on here, that a moment like that. And it's always interesting, those little moments like that. And here you are now because of that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. That's what is important to me. That's what made me fall in love with music, and the Yellow Submarine by the Beatles.
There we go. We got another Beatles. We got our guest Noah back. He was like huge into Beatles, so that was really cool too. And what about you, Riley?
I feel like I've always been like music oriented. Like I remember from like age 3, I was already like memorizing songs that you'd hear on the radio just like day in and day out. And then just throughout life, I've switched up on a lot of genres. I think that's another thing that I like. It's just like there's so much variety. Like in my playlist, I have one of those playlists where like it completely switches. Like I could listen to the most rootin' tootin' country song, and then the next minute I'm listening to something like Panic. So it's
yeah, he does. I've been on many road trips with Riley. Very much. His playlist goes off.
Yeah, but that's the big thing for me is just I really like how there's so many different types of music. There's so much different varieties and genres, but they all bring people together in a way. And the fact that we get to create it as well is kind of cool. So that's sort of my stance on it.
I'm very similar. I will be on my playlist, it would be, you know, the new Kendrick Lamar, and then the next it's like Knocked Loose, and then it's like something else,
Hmm.
and anybody like my fiance is totally different. He's like, "What are you listening to?" Like, he's like, "I don't get it." I was like, because I love music, and it's that I'm one of those people too. So I feel you in that. And then what about you, Jake?
I think like I've always been like that kid that like couldn't focus in school. I mean, I'm diagnosed ADHD, so like that makes sense. But like also like I remember just like being so young and just being in school and just like I remember like being in class and just being like, what did we just learn? Because I am
Mhm.
just sitting here humming a song in my head that I listened to on the way to school. And like, you know, I mean, it's always been there, right? Like one of my earliest memories, I think it's on our Apple Music, is me just like sitting in my car seat as a kid. And like, thank God they didn't have cell phones back then because my mom would have been filming me just being like singing like I forgot, I think it's like December 63 or something. Oh, What a Night by like the Four Seasons. And like I was just like singing in my car seat, just like, I don't know, like it's just always been there. But I think what really got me into like, I want to do that too, has to be like the OG MCR. Like I remember my brother showing me, I think that's kind of where the visual aspect comes from
Love
too.
them. Yeah.
Mhm.
um, it's just like I remember watching the music video for I'm Not Okay, and like it just like something took over me. And it just like I don't know what happened, but I was like, it's like love for the first time ever, right? It was just
Yeah.
like this is I've never felt this way before. I don't know who these people are. I don't know why they're so angry. I don't know why they're dressed in all black, but I get it and I feel like they get me. And like just that feeling was like, I want to make people feel that way too. Like they're accepted, that they are represented, that they're not alone in whatever they're going through. And I think that that is the moment where I was like, I want to do that too. This is my passion in life. I'm never doing anything else. And I must have been like 11, 10, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, my chem forever. I love them so
Yeah.
much.
Mm.
I'm like, even like at that When We Were Young fest they're doing, I kind of wish it would be Three Cheers just because I love the Black Parade, but I feel like these days so many people are like, the Black Parade is the best. But there was something about that Three Cheers era for me, and that's where I first fell in love with them. And like you said, the imagery and just how they were and everything, there was a reason for everything, much like how you guys were talking about, like the I'm Not Okay video, how they had the opening, and then I think the Ghost of You too, that video
Oh my
too.
God. Great
Like that
video.
one is crazy, like to think about what they put into that and just and even what they're doing now, even the Black Parade, every that concept and everything. But I feel like it's so interesting. Almost not every person on here, but a lot of people have talked about My Chem being that first memory and that first everything for them. So that's so cool.
I
For
remember
sure.
being in like seventh or sixth grade or something, right? Like newly in like middle school. And I remember taking my stupid iPod, it was probably the one with like the circle dial on it and the center press piece and whatever. But like I remember sitting in class and just being like, I cannot get Thank You for the Venom out of my head,
Hmm.
or The Ghost of You, or Helena, or
Yeah.
Not Okay. And I remember
Such
just
great
being like,
songs.
I would be like, can I go to the bathroom? And I would just like I would just go to the bathroom and I would just listen to like three or four songs and then go
Oh,
back. I was
Such
so,
great songs.
it just
yeah.
hit so hard that I would physically just like need to excuse myself from whatever I'm doing to go listen to these songs.
And you know, like their music is about mental health. And I
Hmm.
think that's why it's so like we latch onto it so hard because their music is about mental health and inspires us to think about mental health, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why we keep listening to it over and over again because it inspires us to think about mental health.
Yeah, like they're them, and obviously like Anthony Green, Circus Survive is big for Justine and I because Anthony Green, he's another huge mental health advocate. Someone
Hmm.
probably is listening to this like you always bring him up, but it's so true. Like artists like Mike Hem and Anthony Green, and there's so many, even Burt McCracken of the Used. They talk
Oh my
about what they're
God.
going through, and it's like those, like again, Burt McCracken is like dream bucket list to ever get to talk to because he's such a mental health advocate. But I think all those bands from that era, that is probably why we still all gravitate towards them, even all these years later, because we can relate to them.
It's universal thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, the Used is like, if it wasn't My Chem, it was the Used for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then, I just remember, oh my gosh, I could cite the Used like things that happened to like I was so involved in that. And like there was part of me that was just like, I don't understand this and like why they're screaming and like, but I
Mm-hmm.
understand, like I don't understand it. Like when you first start listening to stuff like that, you're kind of like, at least for me, I was like a little bit like, wow, this is really intense. And like, but part of me is like I connect to this in like, and like I was the type of person that like was kind of I think I was afraid of those feelings. And like, so I didn't like, I was a little bit scared of like the use that first in the way of like, what is this all about that but I connect to it and I don't know
Yeah.
why and I don't understand that. But I do. And like, I really, something about the way he like screams his head off in a certain part just like makes me feel like I'm heard and seen. The Used is definitely one of those bands too. I mean, I was obsessed with everything they used.
Oh my God.
For
Yeah.
sure.
No, that when we recorded our episode about when we were young and the ones we would pick and choose. I'm like, no, without a doubt, it would be the Used. I would go see them. I don't care. I've seen them so many times. I need to see them and get that release because there's something about those bands and especially them. And I feel like the Used,
100%.
I think the Used sounds better today than they even did back then. Like, which is wild to think
100%.
about. They've been around forever.
They've had a huge resurgence and
Yeah.
good for them because it's really hard. It's really hard to be a new band. I think it's even harder when you have an established thing and people are like, oh, I've heard you forever. And they
Yeah.
kind of look at you more of as a nostalgic band. They've somehow gotten out of that and it's amazing. And I honestly, I look forward to hopefully being able to do that for us one day too,
Yeah. Like I was gonna say, what is for you guys too? What would you say? I mean, I know there's the obvious, but what is one of some of the biggest struggles as a new band these days? I know you have to almost use TikTok. You have to become a social content creator almost these days, which some love, probably some hate. But for you guys, what has been the biggest struggle?
Oh my God, the social media is a love hate for sure. Like you
Social
say
Hmm.
media is a
love, you
lot.
say
Yeah.
hate, it's a love hate for sure.
Yes.
We actually just like very recently got out of being shadow banned on TikTok, and that was the most stressful time I've ever had in like most it was like a week. It was like 6 days or something. But it
Yeah.
was so stressful to be working hard on content and then no one seeing it, right? But yeah, I mean there's social media for sure. But I think one of the hardest things is like I think there's so many aspects to being in a band that people don't realize, right? There's the financials. That is so hard to balance and to justify like certain aspects of the financials, right? Like we want to tour everywhere we possibly can, but you can't do that without money. And then you're
Hmm.
playing shows and you're not really getting paid that well for them. So it's like you're really not making up anything. You're kind of just recouping any losses that you have. If you even break even, that's a good tour. And like so that's one of the things I think that there's something that's very prevalent of any band I've ever been in is like the dynamics between all the members is so difficult, right? Because it's like everyone has their own feelings. Everyone has I mean, this is a mental health podcast, right?
Yeah.
I have my fears. I have my anxieties.
Oh
Dan
yeah.
has his fears. He has his anxieties. Riley,
Yeah.
Steve, everyone has their, and like, that all plays. And then you add a manager and you add a tour manager and then you add like, other team members and whatever. And like, there's so many dynamics. And then like, I think lastly is just like staying relevant. There's always a million and five things to do. There's a social media post that goes up. There's got to be album artwork that needs to be done. There's a music video that needs to be done. There's a tour that needs to be planned, booking. I mean, you name it, it never ends. And it's like, unless you have a full-blown team, things get messy. They get lost. They get stuck, swept under the rug. You lose an instrument somewhere
Yeah.
or you
I
forget something,
You break
like
something.
that's so hard. You break something.
I think that what Jake is saying is that like it's very overwhelming to
Hmm.
be a new artist in the music climate right now. It's very overwhelming. Where do you start? How do you, once you've started, how do you keep it going? how logistically, how do you deal with it with multiple members, because unless you're a solo artist, if you have like a team, now you're logistically dealing with 6 people rather than one person. And the logistics of that is way, travel becomes really expensive. Everything becomes a lot more expensive. Funding becomes a problem of trying to figure out, how are we going to fund this? How are we going to fund this in a fair way, right? Because we're all, a lot of bands, and we're all splitting stuff to make sure that everyone, it feels that
One for Alex. Yeah.
everyone feels that everything is fair. So funding becomes an issue, of figuring out all that. And it's so overwhelming for the new artists to deal with all that on their own as an unsigned artist, because in the past, those days are long gone. But in the past, labels would take a lot of chances on artists, and they would be dealing with all this, so the artist didn't have to deal with as much of this. Now the individual artist or the band, like, we have to do everything. We have to be our own self-starters. We have to do it all ourselves, and it can be very overwhelming sometimes and take a toll on our mental health.
Yeah, like, it's hard enough sometimes when it's like, all right, we got to promote the podcast, do this, and then edit it and do that. Like, at least that's it. And then it stops. But being in a band, I can't imagine, and having to deal with all that. And again, like one of our guests we talked to, Kaylee Goldsworthy, she was saying how she played Coachella at this awesome festival. She got to play, but then had to take like a $10 bus home because at the end of the day, the label, and then nobody really cared. So she had to take a $10 bus home after playing this amazing festival, this amazing opportunity. But it was like, all right, and then I got to go back to work, that maybe I lost my job, and balance that and the mental gymnastics of that. And it just made me respect people more.
People don't realize that artists, and it's not just musicians, but artists, go through so much for the dream, and it's so overwhelming for artists, and this goes back throughout human history. This goes back to ancient Rome. Patrons, where does the word patron come from? The word patron comes from a Latin word for someone who would give, an artist or someone money in order for them to keep, doing. Da Vinci had a patron. All these artists had patrons. And even now, now it's like the fans are our patrons, and trying to, make everything for our fans, so our fans believe in us, and so that we can have success that way. And it's so hard to deal with the overwhelmingness of making the content and making everything for those fans, to keep them interested, because we all have such short attention spans. And that's another mental health thing that is created from social media, which is the Ouroboros, right? The snake eating itself. Is, we need to do social media, but on the other hand, social media is like maybe not good for our mental health. So maybe we shouldn't do social media, but we need to do social media. That's that never ending cycle, right?
Oh,
I think Dave touched on something that is so like, I didn't even think of this. Like, I forgot to say this until he said it. One of the biggest struggles as a band is the idea of like charging people that support you feels so unnatural. Right? So like, we are all so poor, right? Like, we are the definition. I'm sure all of us are the definition of like starving artists. And it's like, but then I go to shows and someone's like, oh, I really want a shirt. And I'm like, I really want to give you this shirt, but we're so poor. And like, I want to do this and I want you to have it. And like, because just the fact that you follow us and engage with us, like, that's so much to us. And like, I'm always being yelled at by our manager. You got to talk about merch more on stage, and you got to talk about this. And it's like, but I feel so awkward because it's like, you guys are supporting this dream. And like, that is one of the biggest hurdles I think no one talks about as an artist. Like, you where does that line get drawn between, like, first off, like, where is that, like, how do you value your worth as an artist? And two, how do you get past that hurdle of like, I'm creating this art and there's value to it, and like, it's so hard to cross that line. I don't want to charge anybody for anything because it almost feels wrong, right? Because this is therapy for me, doing this as like an artist. This is therapy for me. This is like, I love writing the songs. I love playing shows. Like the fact that anyone supports us is mind blowing to me. So where does that come into play? Because it's like, for me, you're doing me the favor by just being here at our show and just supporting us. Like, like where does that turn
That's the
into?
worst part.
But then
It comes down, we
yeah.
do it for free. We do it for free.
Right. And then, so like, that's the snake eating itself, right? It's like, we love doing this, but we need money to do it. But where do you get the money to do it? And I also feel awkward charging
How do you
people.
fund? Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, so
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest hurdles, I think, as a band. It's
Wow.
like, how do you justify to yourself that your artwork and that your skills and your songwriting and your live shows are worthy of someone paying for things? And maybe that's myself, maybe that's me, I don't know, but like that has been my number one problem as an artist. I feel like the fact that anyone supports us is more than enough, but also it's not, because like, how do we continue to do this? It's not
Exactly.
self-sustaining. So like that to me, I'm happy you said that, Dave, because I feel like that is the number one thing that I think all artists go through. I could be wrong, but
All artists. I'm sure that all artists go through this of trying to figure out, especially early on, trying to figure out funding, like, and
what is my
trying to
worth?
not feel awkward
Yeah.
about their worth for funding, right? Because, again, like back in the day, your worth because a label would have, taken a chance on you, right? So like, oh, the label's going to take care of everything. But now, where you have to be your own self starter,
You
you
have to be a
really need to
business.
know your worth in the first place. You need to know that you're worth of something for your patrons, for your art, for your fans,
Oh, and no one has really touched on that, and I can't imagine because it's like everything you guys have said, because you're thankful for everybody supporting you, but at the end of the day, I couldn't imagine. I could not be in that position of, oh, but buy my shirt. But I have to say, you guys did something interesting where with your hoodies you guys had up, where you would write a letter. I have one. I don't know if it's in the mail or like where I'm close. So who knows? It could be in my mailbox right now. But I thought that was so cool. And I guess in a way of adding that touch of, hey, we appreciate you and that you're doing that. I've never seen a band do that, even on the smaller scale, which I mean, not dogging anybody that doesn't, but I thought that was really cool that you guys did that.
Well, I think something that kind of happened over the last, like, we were not proficient with posting on TikTok. Like, we up until maybe 2 or 3 months ago, max. We were more Instagram based. Like, I'm old, so like, it took me time to just like be like, okay, we have to be on TikTok. Like,
Yeah.
Riley was handling TikTok because he's young, and like, I was like, okay, let Riley do it, right? Because
Yeah.
I just felt like so disconnected from it. And then we were like, well, Riley's seeing some like success on TikTok. Let's try doing more of that. And so, we put more of the focus on there. And then something happened, right? Where when we started doing both, we started getting a lot of people that were just so supportive. And I think our way of people, like, of justifying people paying for something was giving them something more personal. And like, I think, like, because for me, I mean, it's crazy because the art itself is personal, right? But like, I don't know. I just it felt like we needed to give more than just a shirt, because like we have seen so much support on social media in the past, like, I would say like maybe 6, 7, 8 months on Instagram, and then the last like 2 months on TikTok. Like, we've seen so much support that it felt wrong not to do that, because it's like, you guys support us every single day. Like, you're buying this. I mean, the last thing that's personal about an artist is their merch, right? Because the artwork is personal. That is absolute, not artwork, but like the songs, like the art itself, the lyrics, the music, that's all personal. That's something that we all personally touch. But like, you're not getting that from us. We're not handing it to you. We're not writing it out and handing it to you. Then you have like the live performances, and that's really personal, because you're there with us and we're able to meet you and hug you if you want to hug, and just say hi if you don't want to hug, and that's fine either way. But then you have the merch, which is like very impersonal. It's like, this is an item. You can buy this or you don't have to. But this is, I won't, not for us, not mass produced, but this is produced on a scale where they're all replicated. It's all the same thing, right? So for me, I think it felt more right to write something out and personally sign it, and with our awful, all of us have awful handwriting, but like to like write out something that gave the merch a personalized touch to thank everybody for buying it because they didn't have to. And like
Yeah.
that to me felt like the only acceptable way to promote our merch. And that goes back to
Those
the whole money thing and how I get awkward, or you know what I mean? Like if you're paying
Yeah.
for something, I want it to be personal for you. I don't want it to be just something that's mass produced. Like we're not making like, mass produced, like, I don't know, name item. We're
Yeah.
we're a band. We're something that you can connect to on an emotional level. And I don't want anything ever that if you're gonna buy or do something with this band to feel impersonal. So handwritten stuff felt like the next best thing we could do.
Yeah, that again, that was I think that's so great everything you guys just said because I think so many of us just think, "Oh, we're just buying this merch or whatever." And in just to have you say how a little thing like a personal touch of a note, it means a lot to you. It means a lot to the person, I'm sure, when they open it up and they're like, "Oh, cool." Like, and whether it's I just oh gosh, I wish any band listening to this do this because I thought it was so cool and I had to do it. I was like, I need to order this. And I like
Thank
to
you.
support any band on the podcast because I grew up with all my friends in bands and doing their thing and helping them out. So it was so cool to see that. And the design was cool too. So you know what? It's a
Thank
win-win.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think that those things become more and more important now in this day of kind of impersonal things, like Jake was saying, the merch of being the least personal part.
Yeah.
I think that now, especially when things get so impersonal with just, looking in windows on your phone to look at the artist to get something that's real that someone, wrote it becomes more and more important every day, every passing year.
Yeah. And I mean, even to kind of go back to, I mean, we already touched on it a little bit, but I mean, we're in 2024, which is insane to think about. But
Hmm.
for mental health, I mean, I feel like we've made strides for I mean, I know it's Mental Health Awareness Month now, and more people are talking about it, but there still is a stigma. What would you guys all like to see as far as mental health awareness go? Like, is because it's always that thing, like any company will post, it's okay to not be okay, but then nothing happens. So what would you guys like to see in your own personal lives and dealing with mental health? What would you guys like to see happen?
I would personally, I would like to see mental health on a medical scale be as widely accessible and as financially accessible
Mhm.
as any other, as maybe even better than any other form of healthcare, right? Because I feel like there's already a resistance to getting help for your mental health because like you said before, it's the invisible thing, you don't see it, blah blah.
Yeah.
I think if it was more widely accessible, I think that it wouldn't be, well, I don't really need to do this, or you're getting to the point where, well, maybe I do need to do it, and then you get the bill and you're like, wow, I just can't afford this.
Yeah.
Like I think for me, I think being financially accessible would be the ultimate goal in my
Yeah.
lifetime, at least. So at least on a mass scale, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that
Yeah.
could improve the lives of so many people.
Oh, 100%. Like even with my fiance going through his accident to get therapy, like his therapy appointments were like in the 200s a week, a session. And it was like, luckily we were okay then, but there were times where we weren't. It was like, what do we do? You need your therapy, but we can't afford $200 a session, or even with insurance, you can't afford that. And it's such a deterrent. And I think that's the thing too. I think so many people look at the financial aspect because they have to, and it sucks. I hate how
Mm.
expensive it is.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, accessibility is so important. And it's like accessibility, I think, is the number one thing that keeps people from getting their help 100% is it's not accessible enough, and therefore, not to use the L word like lazy, but it's not accessible enough, so I don't want to do the work to make it accessible for myself, so I'm not going to do it, and I can just do it on my own. And talking to your support system is super important as well, but seeking help is really important as well. And if it was just a little bit more accessible, I think it'd be a lot easier for more people to get help like that.
Yeah, and want to get help because I think that's it's
Hmm.
always so harder. And sometimes, you go through one therapist and maybe they're not the right fit, but then you have to go through it all over again. and it was already hard to do it once, but now you got to do
Mhm.
it again. And sometimes it's hard when you're struggling to make phone calls or even get out of bed. Like you don't want to do
Exactly.
that, and then
You don't
then
want
you
to do that.
no, and then it's like, all right, now you got to make all these phone calls, and your insurance will deny you. So I wish more companies and more people would try and have more access and work towards that because
Yeah,
we need it for sure.
100%.
And I mean, what about you, Riley?
No, yeah, I completely agree with Jake. I feel like you said, like it's impossible, like 200 a week for a session is just stuff like that. It just doesn't make sense. So like me, I'm actually in the military, and I was having my sort of like down in the dumps and like I need help,
Mhm.
and it was provided for me, but like I couldn't see me if I wasn't in the military. Like thank God they provided me like therapy sessions and to talk to somebody. But like out in the real world, like I would have had to pay like $1,000 for a whole month just for somebody to tell me like, hey, just do this, do that. And it's
Yeah.
just, I don't know, it's in a way it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. And I think too, and how some people treat people with mental health. You'll hear people
Right.
online, oh, they're crazy or oh, they're this. And it's
Mm.
it's like, can we stop that? It's
Yeah.
2024. We
Or
don't need
it's
to be
like
The
calling
a
people that.
stigma, the stigma's
right,
crazy.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
it's like a condescending thing, like, oh, like it's okay. It's like no, I'm a person. You don't gotta I'm
Hmm.
not a child. Like I'm a human dealing with struggles. I'm not, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. Or my favorite is like, everybody worries. It's okay. It's okay, Lisa. Everybody worries. Yeah, okay. But it's different like on my end when I have
Mhm.
an anxiety disorder. It's a little different. So yes, we all worry, but I think everyone just has to have more compassion for everybody because you don't know what anyone's going through.
Right.
I think genuinely, I think if the naysayers were to get help, I feel like I don't think all the world's problems would be solved. I think that would be really ignorant to say, but I do
Hmm.
think it would solve way more problems than, than not going to get help.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's so many situations that could be solved if people just had the access or ability or the want to get some sort of help. I feel like it's more widespread than people realize, and I think it's the reason why you keep saying it's the invisible thing. Like people don't realize, like I feel like if people just gave it a shot and tried, like I
Hmm.
go to therapy weekly and like, it's helped me work through a lot of stuff. It's actually helped me write even better songs because I'm realizing things that bother me or things that I didn't really understand or like know was bothering me. Like it helps me figure out where all this stress and anxiety is coming from. And then it helps me as an artist. It doesn't hinder me. It makes it better for me. And I feel like, and it also helps me, in my day to day. And I can understand if I react a certain way, like either I can dissect it in therapy or I already know why I did it and I can step away from the problem. And that would have been my answer if I wanted to chime in with like, what do I do if I'm feeling really stressed or anxious? Like, find a way to step away. And I would never have done that before, removing myself from the situation had I never been to therapy.
And I think the more maybe someone hearing what you just said is going to help them understand like it's okay. Like if you go to therapy, it's a great thing. I'm getting back into it after not being able to afford it. So I'm finally getting back into it. And it's one of
Great.
those things too. It's like you said, like to remove yourself. I even know there's some days where I'm like, I'll tell my fiance, like, look, I know why I'm doing this. I understand it's not okay that I'm doing that. I'm holding myself accountable, but hey, I'm having a moment. I'm having a day. So I think
Yeah.
if more of us can understand that, but this has just been so great to have you guys on and get to talk to you guys about your music and mental health. And I know you've got some stuff coming up. You've got Friday, there's a show. I think, ooh, I'm trying to remember the venue. Arlene's Grocery, is it
Hmm.
there?
Arlene's
And
Yeah.
you've
Grocery,
got that.
NYC.
And sadly, when this comes out, it'll already been, but still, that's exciting to anyone. And then you've got June 1st, obviously. But anything else we can look forward to? I know the new song, which we kind of touched on, but anything you're looking forward to coming up for you guys?
Yeah, I mean we have kind of stacked few months coming up. We do have an EP that's supposed to come out soon. So definitely more music. We're working past the EP already, writing wise. We have a tour at the end of June. to support all the songs that we've been releasing to the Midwest. We haven't been there in a while. So, if you're in Pittsburgh, if you're in anywhere in Ohio, I think we have 2 dates that you can kind of catch either if you're really from anywhere. And then, we're in Indianapolis for one date. And then, we definitely have a lot more coming up. We have some stuff already planned for next year. So just keep a lookout because we got more merch designs coming in. So, definitely keep an eye out because there's definitely a lot on the horizon for us that we're doing right now.
100%.
Oh, that's
We
awesome.
actually took a step back in 2023 and did a lot of touring so that we could prep for 2024. So now you're kind of just seeing that all come out.
The progression.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's so awesome. So I can't wait to have that all clipped and have people send your way because again, I loved hearing your band. I was like, this is so cool. This is totally, sometimes I have to get into the mode of each band and I'm like, no, this right away, it's perfect. And I can't thank you guys enough for taking the time today and everything you guys said.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that I know you guys are so close, this is so wild. I'm gonna have to catch you guys sometime.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Come hang out.
We should do something. It'd be so much fun.
And all right, guys, that was our conversation with Jake, Riley, and Dave of Roderik. Again, Steve, you are welcome anytime, and maybe we can do it in person because now I know you guys are locally based. This was such a great conversation because, again, they shared so many things, and especially that struggle that they face with asking their fans for merch and support and how difficult that can be for a young band. And I guess I just never thought of that. Again, I'm not in a band, so maybe that's why, but I love that they shared that. And I'm sure a lot of you guys that follow this podcast that are musicians are going to feel the same way in their struggles and that. And I appreciate them sharing about their own mental health journeys. Anytime, again, we love every guest, but anytime we can get a group of men on here that are sharing about men's mental health and what they deal with, it's so incredible to have. And I think it's so important to have those conversations. So again, I can't thank them enough also for their patience. As I said earlier, there was a little technical difficulty with Zoom and they were just wonderful and so kind. And I truly appreciate them. Make sure you're listening to Where'd You Go? Again, Joshua Roberts of Magnolia Park. I know a lot of you guys like Magnolia Park. Go listen to it. It's amazing. It's been on repeat for me. They've got that show at 89 North coming up and they've got some other things in the works. So don't miss them. They're just such a great band and they're great people and we need to support that. For Justine and I, we will be back next week. As always, new episodes every Tuesdays. You know the drill. Hope you guys are enjoying new music. I know the new Bring Me the Horizon dropped. The new Billie Eilish dropped recently. Just so much stuff. I think the new Say Anything dropped too. I don't know, so much to catch up on, but I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves and we will see you guys next Tuesday. All right, bye guys.